Hello everyone and welcome back to Now You're Playing with Power, a Nintendo podcast. My name is NBZ and I'm your host for this week, as I am usually, and this is episode 23. And on this day of reckoning, as many of the Scottish people around us are calling it, I'm joined by Bally.
Hi NBZ, just say no.
Just say no. Just do not go with the flow. No. It's how it should go.
Solidarity, better together.
Indeed, exactly. If you have no idea what we're talking about, then that's fine. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Hopefully, by the time this podcast comes out, it will all be irrelevant. So, let's get into things. What are we going to be doing this week, Bal? This is a video game podcast about Nintendo. So, how about you tell the fine folks what we're going to be chatting up?
As normal, we're going to talk a bit about what we've been playing. We have some more of your emails, and then finally, we're going to talk a bit about the Smash Brothers roster. So we now know fully what's happening with regards to Smash Brothers for the 3DS. We know the roster, the stages, etc. Some disappointments, some ups, some downs, and we're also going to give some impressions of the demo that both of us have been playing quite extensively, actually. So look forward to that.
I have no fears in saying that this is probably the most I have ever played and will ever play a demo in my life. I probably put
what have you racked
around,
up now?
I don't know. I would say 7.5, maybe 8 hours.
Wow. I'm on about 4.5.
Yeah, it's it's got its teeth in me. It is so limited, but man, Smash is so much fun. We'll get to that, of course. But
cool.
We're going to kick things off, of course, with what we've recently been playing the past couple of weeks. And Bally, how about you let us know what you've been digging into?
So, I've actually been playing an indie game. Now, I never ever... I think this is the first indie game I've ever sort of owned and played for myself. I mean, I've played some games that you've had in the past, and that game is Trine to Director's Cut.
Which is my favourite experience on Wii U, if you remember from our episode a while back when we talked about our 3 favourite experiences on the system.
Yeah, so already you're very positive about the game. I'm pretty positive too, but I'll get into that. So Director's Cut is but you get an extra 7 levels. Is that correct?
Well, basically what they did was the original game came out, and then after release they put out a DLC pack, which was called the Goblin Menace DLC. And obviously that came out on Steam, and I think it was only on PC for a while. But when it came to Wii U, all of that was put out, so I guess you could call it like a Game of the Year edition, where they basically took the DLC and just added it onto the main game. So you have the whole package there in one whole thing, which is nice to just kind of play all through in a single sitting instead of having to wait in between. So
well, yeah. I've not played all of the Goblin pack. I'm still working my way through the first level of that, but I've completed the main game, so the first 12 levels.
Sure.
And yeah, it took me about probably 13.5 hours actually to complete it all. And I was really impressed. I mean, you had been nagging me for ages to download this game, and then I remember being out on a run in London and I got a text message, and I always check my text at the end of a run, so I checked at the end of the run, and then it was you saying, Bally, you gotta download Trine to, it's on sale again, and it was something like 50% off or something big. So I bought it for something like £6, which was a really great deal because the amount of time I've sunk into this game. I think for me personally, what stands head and shoulders above the rest of the aspects of this game that I like the most are the graphics, I should say, and the art. I think that especially for an indie game, I think the art in this game is unbelievable, and
it's a really beautiful game. Yeah,
it is so worth playing in HD. I must say I did play a bit on the gamepad, and you kind of have to play a bit on the gamepad while you're using Amadeus the wizard to use the touchscreen to create crates and control the physics, and that's sort of like his main jam, as it were. So yeah, I did play a bit on the gamepad, but you've got to just try and play as much of this game with an HD screen as possible because it looks unbelievable. Like I know I talk about graphics in games quite a lot on this podcast, but this is probably the best. I might even say this is the best so far. Perhaps I'm not sure.
And this is a launch title for Wii U, no less, from a really small studio from Finland, I believe.
Finland,
so.
yes, Frozen Byte.
Yeah, Frozen Byte's the name.
Yes.
And I think it's really impressive what they managed to do. As a game that came out at the very beginning of Wii U's life, it has online that is working and functional. It has voice chat implemented into that, and it has, co-op for the entire campaign. It's basically a perfect port of what the PC version is. And to add to that, of course, you were saying that you're playing on the gamepad a lot to use the wizard in his boxes. I think Wii U is definitely the best console version of this game, because if you don't have a touchscreen to be able to, draw that stuff and move it around easily, you're using analog sticks. And let me tell you for a fact, having tried that when we did a bit of co-op of this, it's not fun to try and make those boxes with analog sticks. So
yeah.
In this case, the gamepad is a perfect analog for a mouse and keyboard, and it just works fantastically.
So the main premise of the game is that you're swapping between three characters: a wizard, a sort of thief rogue style character, and a sort of heavy hitter knight character. And the three characters represent the main three forms, the main three things you're doing in this game, I should say. So those are platforming, puzzles, and fighting. And I would argue that the majority of the game, or the majority of time you're spending playing the game, are probably the puzzles, followed by the platforming, and then the fighting is very, very interspersed. So you can be walking along through a level for about 3 or 4 or 5 minutes without doing any fighting at all, and then all of a sudden you'll become sieged upon by a horde of goblins. And so if you're looking for like quite a fast-paced 2D platform with quite a lot of combat or fighting, this probably isn't the right game for you, because I do think it is incredibly slow paced. And I was just saying before, NBZ, but each level for me personally took roughly an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. And if you know what you're doing on these levels, it can take us as short a time as maybe 15 to 20 minutes. But just sort of the time you spend experimenting, drawing crates, creating platforms, trying to get past obstacles is where I found myself spending the most time. And there were quite a few times where I'd have to check online something because there was just no way I was going to be able to get past. And yeah,
and sometimes, I mean, even checking online can't help you to a full degree, because I find that the physics in this game are so free-flowing, and it feels like this physics sandbox in which you can almost do anything, that when you figure out a solution to a puzzle, like, some games make you have that feeling that you have done it in the only way and there's no other way to do it. And there are some games where you're like, oh wow, how did I do that? Like, there's no other way to do this. This is a game where legitimately you could create a solution for a puzzle that no one who has ever played that game before has ever done in the exact same way, just because of the fluidness of how the physics work and the weird contraptions you can set up.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's just so many different ways to how you can get past obstacles, and so it's just the way the game goes from these obstacles. So you just get past, say, a big gap that you had to work some sort of bridge across, and then you finally get across, and then all of a sudden there's a sort of like this Celtic theme tune that always kicks in whenever there's fighting about to happen, which is really nice. It feels very sort of almost Lord of the Rings, and it's just kind of like, all right, the music's kicking in, the goblins are coming, and then you swap to your knight, hack slash, sorry, I should say, and then it's cleared, and then you move on, and then there might be some more platforming, and then it's just the way the levels are designed. I love that it mixes up the elements, and it's not just puzzle after puzzle after puzzle. That it does feel broken up, and that's what I really like about this game.
And it does seem that there are multiple solutions to each one, so you could be using different characters to approach the situations. Did you find that while you were going through the main game, you were crutching, should I say, on one character over the other?
I'd say that my default was the rogue. So this is a platformer game in general, the rogue has the ability to fight a bit because she can use her arrows. And at the same time, she's very good at platforming. I think her jump is ever so slightly bigger, or maybe that's just what I think. And obviously, she has the claw shot, or the hook shot, or the grapple, whatever you call it. I'm getting too Zelda right now, but
it's basically just a rope that grapples onto wooden surfaces, and you can swing and use it like like a kind of grappling hook.
So I'd say I would by default be her, and then if a fight ensued, I'd swap to the knight, and likewise it's quite clear when you're going to need the wizard for certain sections, because there'll just be massive gaps, and then you can create planks and crates, and yeah, it's just so cool that the way that this game treats that. So yeah, I'd say I play the rogue the most, and then swap to the other two when needed.
Yeah, I definitely think that she is the most versatile, and she definitely feels the best to control. She's the fastest also, so you can get through areas pretty quickly. But I did feel I used the wizard a lot, especially because I never really played this game co-op at all. And when you're doing that, it means you really want to upgrade the wizard, so you have multiple uses of boxes, and you can kind of, create areas to get up to gems and everything and all that good stuff. So yeah, that did seem like something.
And we have played maybe 3 to 4 levels together, I think, NBZ. So we played a couple when I got the game a while back, and we also did a couple the other day when I was at your house. And there are elements that feel a bit cheap when you're using co-op. You have the option of someone being the wizard, and then you can just stand on a crate, and then the person playing as the wizard can just move that player to any point. I actually think there is an option in the options to turn that off.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah, so maybe we could have used that some other time. But the co-op does really excel with this game, and it don't get me wrong, it's great fun playing single player, and I've played most of the game single player, and it's really good. It's just that the co-op really does come alive, and especially with the Wii U, because one player's on the gamepad and then the other player can be the rogue or the knight. It works. It's like a nice synergy going on.
Definitely, and having it a possible 3-person online co-op as well, just it's one of those things that Nintendo never does, and I don't see them doing anytime soon. So it's one of those unique experiences, I think. On
My only issue with the game, and I was saying this before recording, MZ, and it's maybe an unfair issue because of what they're going for with this game. So like you said, it's a very physics-based sandbox. There's bits of crates, planks, open contraptions, gates, stuff like that going all over the place. So it's really hard. I don't know all the technicals behind sort of how the Wii U would process all of this, but there was one point, for example, I was playing the game yesterday, and I got to an area where you're meant to fight lots of goblins. So I swapped to my knight, I clear the area, but then there's a gate where an enemy got stuck behind, and basically there was no way for me to advance, because what I needed was the gate to open, the enemy come out, I defeat the enemy, and then I go back through the gate. And basically there's no reset button to just say, oh, all the physics got stuck, or because I do think it would be possible to get certain items stuck in certain places, other than this gate that was annoying me. So it would have been nice if there was some sort of reset button, but at the same time, whenever you die and you go back, because there's frequent checkpoints throughout all the levels. So whenever you die, you go back to the most recent checkpoint. And then when you continue on from that checkpoint, any enemies you'd already defeated remain defeated, and there's no respawning enemies, which is nice. But
yeah, and even if you're fighting a boss, like in the middle of a boss fight, the health will be exactly the same as it was when you died, which I think definitely works really well for this game, because if they put you up against some of those bosses and said you only have one life to do this, it would be really frustrating, because they are kind of unforgiving with those guys.
Yeah, and I think maybe the story is something I've not mentioned yet. It's an okay story. It's more stylish in terms of the environments than actual nitty gritty of the story. I can't even
It's
really
kind of
remember
very
the story.
generic fantasy
Yeah,
fare,
it's like you're
overall.
following some princess who's been trapped or something by her sister Rosabelle, who turns out to be bad, and then it's a bit wishy-washy. But the cutscenes are quite nice, and the banter between the three characters is quite nice. I did
Yeah,
enjoy
I think
that.
those dialogue sections are good, and
Yeah,
in terms of the overall atmosphere, it's got some fantastic music going on. There's really good sound design, and overall just a general great atmospheric feel that you
yeah.
get going
And the
through it.
final
So
boss is pretty cool. But yeah, all the environments are easily the best bit of this game, and it's a really long game. Great value for money, like I said. I've still got loads of levels to play, so I'm going to be getting on with those, and we'll tell everyone about them next time. But yeah, that's all I've been playing really. Well, other than the Smash Brothers demo, which we'll get to in a bit. But MBZ, on to you.
yeah, so I guess I have had myself dive back into the world of Wario, our good friend, our buddy, who I was not very kind to a couple episodes back when I was on the Game Boy game Wario Land 2.
But we love Wario. How could you be so mean?
Ah, you can't hate Wario for too long, man. He's got WarioWare. He has had some duff games here and there, but you always got to go back to him. And I'm getting back to Wario in a big way because I just played a Wii game which he stars in, which I'm going to say right now is probably one of my favorite 2D platformers I've ever
Oh,
played.
excellent.
I think this is fantastic. So what I'm talking about is Wario Land, the Shake Dimension, as it's called in Europe. In America, it's called Wario Land Shake It, which I don't know which one I prefer out of those.
Why did they change the name like that? What? I don't understand.
Like why is Luigi's Mansion in Europe Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, but doesn't have the two after it, or maybe it does have the two in America? It does. Naming conventions can go fuck themselves, honestly, because I honestly don't see a difference in how it makes any real change. But whatever. It's the Shake Dimension here. It's Shake It in America. Whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter to me. But it's great. It's a fantastic 2D platformer. It's kind of interesting to draw a parallel between, Trine 2 and this, because you were calling out one of your favorite aspects of Trine 2 as being the artwork and the graphic design and just the visuals in general. Wario Land Shake It is really, really compelling in that arena as well. The hand-drawn art is absolutely fan-fucking-tastic, and
It's developed by I keep forgetting it. Good Feel, isn't it?
Good Feel,
Yes.
yeah, it's developed by Good Feel. The interesting thing, though, is that a lot of the character art and animations were handled by a Japanese anime studio.
That's awesome.
They're called Production IG apparently, and they did a lot of the background stuff and they helped with the cutscenes. And there are only a couple of cutscenes in the game. There's the opening and closing one, but they look like Saturday morning cartoons. Really, they're really well done, and they kind of set up the story in a nice way, even though it's a Wario Land game, so literally who gives a fuck about the story, let's be honest. But it just looks fantastic. The amount of detail in the animations that Wario performs and all the enemies and everything, it does look like a cartoon in motion. It really reminds me of Rayman Legends and Origins and how gorgeous those hand-drawn games are. Obviously, this isn't in HD, but I've been playing on Wii U, and obviously it's running through the HDMI cable into my TVs, but it still looks great regardless of that. It still looks fantastic, and I would praise it for the visuals, despite it being a standard definition quality. So that's one thing that I am really high on.
What's the level like? So I've played Wario Land 4. That's the only Wario Land I've played, and you charge to the level, you hit the blue thing, the timer starts, and then you get back to the exit. What's the format of this Wario Land, especially compared to Wario Land 2, which you described as the black sheep of the series? So what's sort of like the format of this one?
So Wario Land Shake It takes very much from 4. It takes from the formula of 4 and builds upon it, and does much more interesting stuff, I feel, and makes the levels much more varied and unique and interesting in a variety of different ways. But it does still retain the premise of getting to the end, hitting a checkpoint and basically running back to the start. The interesting difference here is that now when you get to the end, you basically find a cage with a bird locked in it, pick it up and shake it. And, this is one of those main things that is part of the game, is shaking the Wii remote.
You cruel, cruel man.
Well, he's in a cage. You've got to get him out somehow. So how does Wario break shit? Well, he shakes it in this game. He gets his big old hands and rub-a-dub-dub, out comes the bird. And the bird basically has an arrow, and the arrow points you the direction you need to go. So all of a sudden, you're not worried anymore about losing your direction and not knowing how to get back to the start of the level because, hey, this little guy's there and he's pointing you exactly where you need to go. So if you found that a problem in Wario Land 4, which I personally really didn't most of the time, then that's one of those things fixed, like instantly like that. It's really nice, and it kind of smooths things out on that end.
You talked the game's obviously called Shake It, and you just talked about how you shake the bird cage. What else do you shake?
You shake many things, Bally.
Okay.
Shaking is a core mechanic in this game. So it's kind of interesting because obviously a core tenet of the Wario Land series is him collecting money and getting all of it and buying a big mansion at the end most of the time. Now, as I said before, Wario Land 2 did this and didn't make me care about it whatsoever. In this game, you shake bags of money to get money out, and it's actually really satisfying because the faster you do it, the more comes out. It just starts spilling everywhere, and you have to collect it before it all disappears. So already they kind of have the core tenet of collecting the money being more satisfying.
Is there a bit of a rumble while you're doing it?
There is. I think the
excellent.
Wii Remote does kind of build that in. So you get that feeling like, oh, I gotta shake the shit out of this bag, get my cash money, and get to the store. And that's the main way they implement money, is getting to the store, because in the store you have the possibility to buy new areas. So beating an area won't necessarily unlock it, because you have to have enough money to buy the map to get to it. So for all intents and purposes, you could just go replay a level again and again and again, get a bunch of money, and go from the first level to the last level instantly and not even have to worry about anything in between. Although I believe to get to the end game you need to defeat all 5 bosses from the 5 main areas, so that wouldn't work anyway. But you have an element of choice there. If you really want to, you can just stick in the first world and go through those same levels again, and just get as much money as you can to unlock the final one. But I think that it's best to just go with the traditional way of just moving from 1 to 2 to 3, as it were, because you learn more stuff as you go, and I do think there is somewhat of a difficulty ramp up, so that makes the most sense.
How long is the game? Like, are the missions about the same length as, say, Wario Land 4? And like, I think Wario Land 4 has maybe 15 levels or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, I would say that it's probably a bit longer. Although overall, I would say mission length is kind of similar, maybe shorter than that. It varies from one to another, as most platformers do. You can have much longer and shorter levels, but it's a good pace, I think, and it's one that I found enjoyable, and the ramp up was good in terms of the difficulty and all of that. So yeah, I would say it's most similar to 4 in that aspect. But there's some really just interesting stuff they do with the shaking mechanic and the use of the Wii Remote. Now, there's no pointing involved, so you're not using the IR, you're not using any kind of shooting at the screen, but there's a lot of tilt, there's a lot of use of the gyro, and it's used in some really compelling and just innovative ways that I didn't think this game would go to. And I don't want to spoil any of them, because I know that you want to play the game and you want to kind of discover these for yourself, but each world does seem to have a core mechanic tied to the gyro that you'll be using throughout each of those levels, and then they do kind of try and tie those into the bosses somewhat as well. But they really do some weird stuff that I didn't see coming, and yeah, I'm sure that you'll have a lot of fun with those. But I don't really want to go any more on that end, because I might spoil something. So
one thing I really noticed while watching you play, because I saw you play a little while ago, was that the screen, it's not widescreen. It's
No,
it's like standard, and I'm just wondering.
it's 4:3
Yeah,
basically.
why? And what do they always put in the two bars at the side?
Um, I didn't really pay much attention to that, to be honest. I was so absorbed by just the enjoyment I had playing the game that it never really bothered me that it was running in 4:3. And I do believe there's nothing of relevance on the bars on the side. Most of the HUD is on the actual screen, like your life bar and your gold count and all that stuff. So it didn't really make a difference, honestly.
Okay.
It's just one of those things that you maybe notice at the start, but you'll soon forget as you start to play it. So I guess that's an interesting thing. But yeah, the life bar, of course, returns in this game, something that wasn't present in Wario Land 2. And
Are there pits?
yeah, there are.
Okay.
There are definitely those, but it still kind of retains that feel. It just goes one step further. It feels so much smoother than Wario Land 4 or any of the previous ones. It just, there are so many interesting things, and it's so colorful as well. It's a really bright and colorful game with varied environments and different places to go, and just huge amounts of theming going on.
I think it was the first Wario Land since Wario Land 4, right? Like, this is effectively Wario Land 5.
Effectively, yeah.
Yeah, and this was 2008?
Maybe around that time.
See, that's like a 7-year gap, because I'm pretty sure Wario Land 4 was about 2001, so it's good to see that they've improved it a lot in that time gap and not just churned out the same old thing again.
Yeah, and I think it was really good to give it to Goodfeel, because
Yeah.
those guys do some really fascinating stuff with Nintendo IPs, and of course, they've recently did Kirby's Epic Yarn, and they're doing the new Yoshi game.
So
Woolly
excited for
World.
that game.
Yeah, it looks really, really great, and I think that they're going to do a lot of fun stuff. Kirby had loads of interesting, weird power-ups that, again, use the gyro and the motion control in super fascinating ways. And I'm looking forward to how, in the Yoshi game on Wii U, that they try and shake stuff up with a gamepad, because I think they could do some really cool stuff there.
I don't want to go off at a tangent too much, but you showed me it was some art design, I think, and I think it was by Next Level Games. For a potential Metroid game.
Yeah.
See, that artwork reminded me of Goodfeel artwork, but wasn't Goodfeel, it was Next Level Games. So I was just thinking, like, it'd be so cool if Goodfeel did take up a 2D Metroid game and gave it a similar cartoony style that artwork suggested that Goodfeel could perhaps do. I don't know. I'm just putting ideas together.
I think that Goodfeel are generally, in relation to their company name, much more about the happy-go-lucky of Nintendo franchises,
so, yeah, that's true.
And in keeping with Wario being kind of light-hearted and just farting all the time and being an idiot,
and then Kirby and Yoshi of very, very child-friendly, yes.
Kirby and Yoshi, very kid-friendly stuff, right? So I think that they. It would be really interesting to see how they approach a Metroid game, but it definitely would not stick with the core tenets of that series if they were to do it. But I think just one of my favorite things about Wario Shake Dimension, Shake It, I really don't. I'm just going to say Wario Shake. The Wario Shake game is how challenging and yet fair it is. Because, let me tell you, some of these bosses are just brutal. They remind me a lot of kind of Donkey Kong Country bosses in terms of the very original game. I've never played the original Donkey Kong Country, but I have watched an LP of it, and I know that the very last boss of that game is really tough. It's a lot of pattern memorization, and it lasts a long time, but once you get it down, once you're focused and you know what you're doing, it's one of the most satisfying things. So that's very much how I see a lot of the bosses in Wario Land Shake It, that they are so tough, and you start them and you're like, what the fuck, how am I ever supposed to beat this guy? But you figure it out, you think of ways to do it, you make sure you're not losing health at certain times, you get the timing down, and it's just precision and execution, and you're done. And yeah, they are really, really great. So very diametrically opposed to Wario Land 2 in the sense that those bosses were just straight up fucking unfair, and I make no bones about that. That was bullshit. These bosses, they're hard, they'll challenge you, but you can do them, you can get through them, and man, that final one had me going for a long time, but I persisted and I, kept concentration, and wow, finishing that guy was hella satisfying, I tell you what.
So good feel of made you feel good?
Yes,
get that out there.
Yes, excellent. Yes, they have.
They've done their job.
They've restored my faith in the Wario Land series, and I'd really be interested in a new one of these, because I guess there hasn't been one since this game came out.
And you've played 1 through 3 as well as 4?
No, I've played 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
I haven't played 3. And I've played Shake Dimension. So the only game I have not played in this series so far is Wario Land 3. So
and is that on the 3DS Virtual Console?
I believe it is. And I recently heard on RFN, Johnny Metz was finishing this game up and did say that this was a much better game than Wario Land 2 and one of the better ones in the series. So I'm interested in it at some point to pick it up. So maybe in the future we'll hear about that game. But cool. For now, those are my thoughts on Wario Land, Shake Dimension, Shake It. If you can find this game somewhere cheap, pick it up. It's what I did, and I do not regret it one bit. It's definitely one of those kind of diamonds in the rough of the Wii's back catalogue. So yeah, go ahead, get at it, and I'll be lending that to you, Bally, at some point, so that you
definitely
can play it.
Keen to play this.
Excellent. Well, that is going to close us out for what we've been playing in the past couple of weeks. We are going to take a quick break here, but don't go anywhere because we shall return with some of the emails you've sent our way. We'll be right back. Okay, everyone, welcome back to the second segment of our show, in which we shall be answering some of your emails that you have sent very kindly to us at our email address, which Bally will so kindly tell you.
NYPPQuestions@gmail.com, and I'm afraid we are running out yet again, so keep them coming, please.
Yes, you gotta get on those keyboards, type away, and give us the questions that you so desire to be answered by us. And I hope that there are some of those out there. Otherwise, we're gonna have to come up with some different segments if we don't have enough people writing in. So do it. Keep doing it. It's always good. All right, Bally. What about the first email? Let's go.
So our first email this week is from Klex Yoshi. Dear NBZ and the man who was playing my favourite video game ever made in the Evers. I know you folk are very much a Nintendo podcast and from a younger generation than I or some others, but I'd like to ask a question that gets away from Nintendo for a bit. You people are from the UK, the land of Super Best Friend PALs and the Mega Man ZX Spectrums. You got the Jet Set Willies and the Fire and Ice Handy Dogs and all sorts of things. Companies like Rare made, but just for these sorts of early home computers like the BBC Micro and the Commodore 64 and the Amiga. My question to you esteemed chaps is if you've ever picked up a Kempston joystick and played some of these classics and that are very much regionally designed for your respective 50 Hz world you all lived in once upon a time. If you have, share your stories. Sincerely, Klex Yoshis of Mount Lava Lava, Mushroom Kingdom.
I'm surprised he didn't include the Yoshi's full official name, of course, which is Yoshisaw T Yoshisaw Muncher Koopas, I think, is what it was.
I've never heard that before in my life.
Did you not come across that news story
No, I've
Basically,
missed it.
someone found. I think it was the guy who's writing the book Console Wars, or the guy who wrote that book Console Wars,
Hmm.
which we kind of talked about a little while ago. Came up with this old Nintendo pamphlet or something from the 80s or whatever that had the full official name for Yoshi, which goes something like that. Yoshi saw Yoshi, yeah, T Yoshi saw Muncha Koopas. I guess the T stands for like Tyrannosaur or something. Yeah. Anyway,
My Yoshi plushie is just staring at me in the eyes right now, wondering what the hell you're talking about.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners will have come up with that story anyway. So I hope I'm reaching some of you with that. Anyway, let's talk about his question.
Have we ever played any of these games
I
or systems?
when back in the day, had an Amiga. Now, I didn't buy this of my own accord. I obviously was far too young when the Amiga came out, or I wasn't even in existence at that point in time. But I did have one, and the reason I had one was because my cousin, who's about 10 years older than me, handed one down. And I think I was maybe around 7 or 8 years old when I acquired it. So I think you could say it was probably the first game system, or at least like home computer-based game system I ever owned, because my first console was the PlayStation 1, and that wasn't until maybe a couple of years after that. So I had an Amiga from him, and it had a joystick. It had, I think it was like a third-party joystick. It didn't seem like an official one, but it had an A and B button. It had the full joystick setup. I had the keyboard and everything, the mouse, and everything came on floppy disks. That's right.
I remember. Yeah, I remember
Games on
this.
floppy disks,
Yeah.
which for you people who are, just of, I guess, the 2000s / late 90s era and have no idea what that is, floppy disk was, I guess, the precursor to the CD.
See, the thing that tricks you about the floppy disk is that the it's not floppy, but the actual
It
disk
kind of is.
well, it's not floppy, but the actual disk that is being protected by the plastic casing is floppy.
Right.
That's I learned that when I was younger, and I told everyone it when I found out about that, because I was always confused why they were called floppy disks.
I didn't know that, so thank you for enlightening me about the
No
nature
problem.
of the title floppy disk.
If you want to find out about floppy disks, come to me.
Yeah, Bali knows a huge amount, clearly. But so the way it worked is that you would put in your floppy disk into the main computer, and it had this the monitor, which was really big and sort of bulky, like a classic CRT TV, I guess. And booting it up was somewhat troublesome. I think I had a lot of issues at that time trying to get the games to work. Some of them did, some of them didn't. And there was one in particular, I can't quite remember the name of it. It had something to do with like a temple and an escape or something like that. It was an adventure game, and it had like 4 discs to it. It was really big and it was really large. And my cousin actually, he came up during the Edinburgh Festival one year, and with one of his friends, because he was performing, doing something as part of his university, and he was maybe 19 at the time, so I was about 9, and he tried to get it to work on the Amiga, and it just wasn't having it. So to this day I've never played that game, and I can't remember what it is, which is really kind of annoying. But there are a lot of games that I did play on the system,
And I remember coming round to your house, and we'd spend a whole day just playing these games, or I'd just sit there watching you play these games, and it was just. This was before we played any games, really. I mean, I think I played a few PC games at home, but that was it.
Yeah, and so there was some good standouts. Do you remember the Simpsons game I had,
Yes.
which was I think Bart versus the Aliens or something along those
It
lines?
was one of the better ones. It was quite fast paced, I remember, and he was on his skateboard, etc. Bart was on a skateboard, and it was like platforming, 2D platformer.
Right, it was like a 2D side scroller when you're on a skateboard and you have to like use your paint can to spray stuff on the walls. And I literally couldn't get past the first level because I was just really terrible. But that was an interesting one. It had like some kind of cutscene beforehand, which was like basically an animation drawn from The Simpsons, which is really weird at that time to see like the amount of technology that was being used to push that stuff. But that was fun. We did play a bit of that, even though we never really got very far in it. Another game which I was a big fan of was Afterburner. Now, I'm not sure if you remember this one.
The
Bally,
driving game, yeah, I do remember this one.
No, this isn't the driving game. I can't remember what the driving game was even called, and you've just kind of brought that back into my mind.
Oh, Afterburner's the jet fighter one.
Right, Afterburner
Yes.
is a jet fighting game where you go through levels, and it's using 3D technology. I'm guess it's kind of the precursor to like the Super FX chip or something, or something even maybe more powerful at that time. I can't even remember what it was, but Afterburner is a really cool game. It's you're in a jet, you're going through these levels, and you're shooting pilots in front of you, and you have to stop at areas to fill up your fuel and stuff. And that was probably the game that I got the furthest in. I got maybe 4 or 5 levels into that before, eventually coming up against some really tough stuff and ended up dying a lot of times. But I think that was a really good game for the setup we had, because it was using a joystick, and a joystick is very much used in flight simulation games and those kind of things. So that was a fun one. That was a lot of fun. Now you've got me really thinking, Bally. What the hell was the name of that driving game?
It was weird.
I believe it was like a motorcycle game or something.
I want to say it was like Monster Trucks.
No, definitely not. It was definitely either some sort of motorcycle rally game.
But I remember there were a lot of you could like drive up the sides of walls a lot. It was quite weird.
I think you're thinking of a really different game than I'm thinking
Really?
of. On it. Yeah. The one I've got in my mind is just a straightforward kind of motorcycle racing game. I'm not sure where yours is coming from. Maybe some weird hallucinated dream, but I can't think of anything that fits that description. Strangely enough, that I played on the Amiga. Yeah, nothing's really come to mind. I guess the last one that I really remember, I know there are a couple I remember. Wizorb. You remember Wizorb? Beep, 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 beep. Hello, this is post-editing Zed here. Just to let you guys know that through this segment we refer to this game as Wizorb. That is not actually its name. The correct name for this game is Wizball. The reason I was calling it Wizorb, and I thought Bally would remember it as Wizorb, well, first of all, he hadn't played it in years, so he wouldn't remember. But I played a game last year on PC, which is a pinball RPG called Wizorb. It's very fun, it's really cool, so you should check that out as well. It's on PC and available on Steam. But just so you know, we will refer to this game as Wizorb for the duration of this segment, whereas in fact the game on the Amiga was called Wizball. So easy mistake to make, but back to the episode.
It's like a okay. Let me try. Wait. I know this. I know this. It's like a puzzle game, and you're like a ball or something.
Right, but you're like a green ball with a face.
Oh, you have a face? Okay, right.
I think so.
I can't remember.
As far as I remember, and I think the box art for it was that faced green ball. You're a green ball with a face, and you're bouncing around like 2D levels.
It's like a platformer.
It's like it's a weird platforming.
I remember the name Wizorb really clearly.
Yeah.
Like really, I just remember you saying Wizorb all the time. Like, yeah. Anyway,
yeah, Wizorb was interesting. I don't think we got too far in that one either, but the one that I remember quite a lot of is a super strange game. James Pond. Clearly, licensing in those days was not as stringent as it is in copyright these days. So James Pond was an adventure about a secret agent seal who went through levels with his underwater gun and stuff, and shot bad guys. And I feel like it was similar to like a Mario 64 setup where you went inside the castle and went to levels from there. Although I can't really be that clear about it.
Now you're testing my memory. I can't remember. But
you don't have any images of your head of James Pond at all?
I do, but all I remember is that he's a 2D, like
seal.
It's a 2D platform side scroller or whatever with a gun, and he's a seal. Yeah, I do remember another 2D side scroller or platformer you had, and it was like it's like set in a jungle or something, and there was quite a lot of jumping in that. I can't remember.
Oh, I think that was Thundercats.
Thundercats? Yeah.
I think there was a Thundercats game. Yeah.
As in the Thundercats?
As in the Thundercats. It was a licensed game for the Thundercats, yeah.
Cool.
That was another one. Yeah, that was like a beat 'em up side scroller going on, stuff like that. So Yeah, that was another. I completely forgot about that. You just really jogged my memory there. Wow. Well, in short, I guess, even though we haven't given you a short answer, yeah. So I owned an Amiga, and we played a lot of those games back in the day. It was a lot of fun, really. And unfortunately, I no longer have the Amiga. It was, I kind of think it broke down at some point, and I could never really get it to work again. And so we gave it away to a charity shop, and I guess that's the last I saw of it. But yeah, that's pretty much my experience with old British video games, as far as that goes. So I hope that was enlightening in some form.
Yeah, it really jogged my memory a bit there. Yeah,
yeah, definitely. Judging things up.
Our next email is from Justin. Hi guys, just listened to the new 3DS episode. My question is, what new unannounced features would you like to see in the new 3DS? One thing I would like to see is the ability to have more than one application open at once, or the ability to keep one game in suspension and open up something else at the same time. I realise the potential of unannounced features differing from what we've seen is a bit unlikely, but one can dream, right? Great show, guys. Keep it up.
Okay, so there is a lot of potential new things that could happen with the 3DS. I think the thing that he's mentioning the most...
The new 3DS!
Oh, let's not do that again. Definitely interesting that he brings up multitasking as a feature, because, you know, with a more powerful processor and increased RAM and everything, it's potentially a thing that could happen. And this is one of the key tenets of the PlayStation Vita, where you can open a game and then you can pause it while you still have another application open. But with the 3DS, it's more limited than that, right? You can have certain applications open while you've paused the 3DS game. So if you, for example, had the ability to open the eShop at the same time as a game, that would be something considered, you know, more progressive, right? Because you can't currently do that, I believe, on either the Wii U or the 3DS. So that's a really cool thing and a cool idea.
I have a feeling you might be able to do it on the Wii U, actually.
I don't think you can open the eShop.
Are you sure?
Maybe you can.
Because the eShop is in the same bar at the bottom on the Wii U, along with the Miiverse and the browser, which are the two main functions that work with.
I guess I guess
3DS.
You probably are right there. Yeah.
I mean that would be a cool feature, but it's not. For me, it wouldn't be much of a big deal. I mean, if I'm buying something on the eShop in general, I'm not really playing a game. But that'd be one thing. One thing I'd really like to see with just the upped power of the system is just for them to go whole hog on like new downloadable software. So this can either be Virtual Console, of which I'd love to see like a proper N64 and GameCube sort of Virtual Console on the new 3DS. I think that'd be really nice to see.
That would be great. It would be nice if they sorted that out on Wii U first of all, but sure.
Exactly. Or maybe this is their opportunity to just launch that a more unified shop that could work on the two, and maybe only N64 and GameCube games could work on the two systems combined or something. Or like,
right. Well, I mean, that kind of leads into what I would really want is basically making that final step towards pushing the systems close together, right? Having the much more unified, cross-buy system or cross, play system, that they have on PlayStation, where you can just buy the game once, it's on both systems, you can save it between both systems, and it's easy to pick up and play, and save states will pass over and all that good stuff. I realize that that's maybe asking a lot, but if they are re-engineering the 3DS to this degree, then I think that's something they really should think about. And, people have been calling for it for a long time, and at this point, it's kind of unforgivable that they haven't done it. So that's what I would like to see most of all.
I still think it's unbelievable that the Wii U Virtual Console has no N64 games, considering that was like one of the biggest features of the Wii.
And that was at launch. There were N64 games at launch on the Wii Virtual Console. It's ridiculous that they're not even on Wii U yet.
It was about one new N64 game every week consistently, a bit like what we're getting with the Game Boy Advance just now.
Yeah, it was really the cream of the crop. But then, with N64, you do tend to run out of games. A lot of them were first party, and then there's licensing issues with things like Perfect Dark and Banjo-Kazooie because of Rare and their situation. So it was much harder, I think, on them with that. But at least when it launched, it was going at a pretty good pace. But at this point, it's going down the ditches.
other than sort of a better eShop or more stuff on the Virtual Console or more unifying between the new 3DS and the Wii U, that in all honesty, I think Nintendo are doing a really good job, and there's little more I really want to see from the system for me personally. Just the increased power and hopefully speeding up all the processes, whether that's playing online or loading up the Miiverse. For example, we now have found out that Smash Brothers on 3DS doesn't work with the Miiverse. Like, you can't open Miiverse while Smash Brothers is open on the 3DS. Just something simple like being able to open Miiverse while you're on the Super Smash Brothers for the new 3DS would be nice.
And I think that's easily going to happen just because it has the ability and power to do that. And it's similar things with like the Pokemon games where you can't have those games in 3D a lot of the time because it's just, I think it's just not well coded enough that it just doesn't work that well. But you know, there are those issues, and hopefully it would run much better on the new system. So that's what I think will happen.
And some more remakes. Like, it's great to see Xenoblade coming. I'd be open for something like, I don't know, Mario Sunshine or Galaxy.
I prefer that on Wii U, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'd prefer that on Wii U because it would look incredible and they could do a proper HD remake. And I was so pleased with the HD remake for Wind Waker that it'd be nice to see something else. And maybe that's a reason why Nintendo have been so slow with N64 and GameCube Virtual Console.
Right, because they have the opportunity to basically repurpose them and sell them to you for a higher price.
Exactly. And I am totally up for that. I mean, if it looks better, they add in 1 or 2 new features, a bit like what they did with Wind Waker, that'd be really nice.
It could be, potentially. I think the other big thing is battery life, but you know, the problem is that battery life technology just isn't advancing at the same rate as other technologies are. And so no matter what industry you're in, you know, no matter if you're using an iPhone or if you're using a game system, I think battery life is just one of those things that people need to put more of a focus on, and it really isn't getting enough attention because these don't last very long.
I think they mentioned it on RFN, but basically the battery for the new 3DS will last longer, but because the system is more powerful, in actuality it lasts the same amount as the existing systems.
Right, exactly. It's just using up more.
So it's just kind of eating its own tail almost, yeah.
Basically, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're not really thinking too outside the box with all these ideas. You got any outside the box ideas?
God, yeah, I mean, you need to really be Nintendo to think outside the box, don't you? So, I don't have much. Anything you can dredge up, Ballet?
It's been rumored, this isn't really thinking outside the box, I'm afraid, but it's been rumored that you're going to be able to use a 3DS as a controller for Super Smash Brothers.
Right, and that kind of lends credence to the idea of making compatibility between the two devices stronger. So
yeah, but in terms of outside the box, I don't know. What about more? What are those cards you got with the
AR cards, right?
Do something cool with an AR card game or something. I don't know.
AR was cool for about 3 days, and then I forgot about it. Yeah. It's really awesome. I love that stuff. And quite recently, I was looking through on my computer. I had a backup of my 3DS, and there were photos on there that I'd taken around the launch week of 3DS when I just got it, and I was messing around with all that stuff. And
nostalgic.
Yeah, it's really fun, and there's pictures of like a giant version of your Mii with a tiny version of my Mii just sitting there, and some really silly stuff that I took pictures of, and you know, there's interesting stuff going on in that arena, but it's just not really contributing much in terms of games and that stuff. I'm really interested, so yeah, it would be nice, but not really too bothered about it, in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything we've seen the new 3DS it's a pretty safe upgrade. Like, they're not going for anything overly spectacular or different about it, but it's got some nice sort of gradual improvements that are nice to see, especially for people like me who only bought the original 3DS.
Undoubtedly. Indeed.
So our next question is from Jack. So I was listening through your podcasts as I've been going through them recently, and I really liked the jukebox segment. This made me wonder, what are your favourite Nintendo video game tracks? Mine would have to be the Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire Elite Four music and the Brinstar stage music from Super Smash Bros. Melee. I'm guessing it's from a Metroid game, but I've never played any, so I don't recognize it. Thanks for the podcast and keep them up. They're amazing. First of all, you need to play a Metroid game, Jack. Like, that would be a great start. But
Coming from Bally, who has
only just started playing Metroid games, but yeah. I love them.
With the fact that the Metroid series doesn't have that many entries, you're pretty deep into them, I would say.
Yeah, I've played a solid 3. Definitely going to play more.
Bally, we're both big fans of game music in many different forms. What are some of your favourite tracks? I won't ask you to pick a single one because I believe that is quite difficult.
Yeah,
but, give me some big hits, some big hitters.
I do agree that Ruby and Sapphire Elite 4 music is very good. For me, I love the Wind Waker soundtrack. I love everything about that game, including the soundtrack. I think Wind Waker and Skyward Sword are probably the 2 best Zelda games. Although I do love Link Between Worlds soundtrack. Okay.
Link Between Worlds just remixes a lot of that classic stuff.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm going to pick one of those songs out, it's the Dark World theme from Link to the Past, which is a that one.
Yeah, that's great, and I would say probably that song, but the remix version in Link Between Worlds for me.
Yeah,
something like that. I love the way that music plays an intrinsic part of the story within Wind Waker. Maybe intrinsic's a strong word, but for the final 2 dungeons, when Medley, for example, is playing her harp, you're actually harmonizing her with the Wind Waker. Like, it's kind of difficult to explain on a podcast, but there's basically... No, I've said that wrong, haven't I? You're not harmonizing her, but the theme tune for the dungeon that Medley is part of and the dungeon that Makar is part of, their 2 theme songs cross over into the Wind Waker main theme.
Oh wow!
Like,
I didn't even realize that.
They literally overlap and then become the Wind Waker main theme, which is really cool, and I do love that. It's kind of this Celtic sounding music, and yeah, just having played Trine 2, I think that's got a great soundtrack. Metroid is another great.
You got the Magmore Caverns, Ridley's
Caverns.
Hideout track. That is a standout one for sure.
Yeah.
I got to give shout outs to Mega Man 2.
Yes.
Wily's Stage, one of the best video games.
And I think the remix
songs.
they did for Super Smash Bros., which was actually used as one of the bridges in the last episode, I think that is the best version of Mega Man 2's theme song, because it's a damn good one. Yeah,
to be sure. Although I've never played it, the original Castlevania has a fantastic main theme. It is it's so good. I think while we're talking about this, I'm just gonna in editing I'm gonna play some of these songs in the background so people know what they sound like. But
nice.
The main theme for Castlevania is just taking 8-bit music and doing so much with it. So interesting. And
for me,
really upbeat.
For me, I really like the Pikmin series. Some of the music in Pikmin 3, and all of these songs that get conglomerated together in Super Smash Bros., which is one of the best bits about Super Smash Bros. You can just like listen to all these musical tracks that they've just put together. It's really good to see. But yeah, Pikmin 3 is another game that I don't know the names of individual tracks often, but I love that game's music.
Alright, and I think to close this out, I would say probably very recently, I mean, this song has come to be like one of my favorites, but it's called Engage the Enemy, and it's from Xenoblade, and it plays quite a lot in really important cutscenes, and it is just phenomenal. The places it goes, it's just so tonally up and down, and there's very quiet moments and somber moments, but then it ramps up, and there's the heavy guitar in the background. It's just a journey. It's a journey of a musical piece, and is my favorite track in the whole of Xenoblade, which to my mind, has one of my favorite original soundtracks of all time in any video game. So that one is a big one for me. I would also pick Cornered from the Phoenix Wright games. Those games generally have a fantastic soundtrack. That one in particular is excellent. And I want to give a quick mention to an independent game that was out on 3DS that I'm a huge fan of, which is VVV, and for my money has incredible 8-bit music. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff I love, a lot of stuff I'm a big fan of, and I can't really choose one, unfortunately, because that's too much to do.
And don't forget Yoshi's Island. I love that too.
Great. Yeah, sure.
And yeah, I'm sure we will do a jukebox segment at some point in the near future. So we'll have
probably some of these will be coming up. I hope.
We will have some more music appreciation then.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We'll certainly do that.
So our final email this week, if we can just squeeze it in. MBZ and Bally, it's me again, Luis, and I would like to share my experiences with younger gamers and ask for an opinion. I have an 8-year-old cousin that I am sometimes with, and I bought him a 3DS, but his parents traded it for a DSi XL. When it came to games, he always copied me, so he played Pokemon and got over-attached to a king jerk called Beat, and didn't want other games until he was level 100. But when he succeeded, he wanted to play games that I had for my DS, including games like Shin Megami Tensei, Devil Survivor, and Castlevania, which he ended up not liking. So I gave him a bunch of random games like the Digimon Story RPGs, which by the way are the most underrated games of all time, and Kirby. But the thing that saddens both of us more than his parents trading in the 3DS for a DSi XL was my cousin wanted a 3DS to play Pokemon and Smash with me, but his parents bought him a tablet instead. He hates the tablet, he only uses it for YouTube. He recognizes that he got shafted with it. He was happy to have Minecraft like I did, but he noticed that he couldn't do anything like I did on my PC. So is it possible for a kid to notice that he got shafted when buying a system from having a very small experience with games?
Well, I guess he is relatively perceptive in that sense, but he did have experience of already owning game systems before the tablet. So, you know, he'd seen the light side, and when he was cast into the darkness, I think that that he was very aware of it. The difference comes with my cousin, where all he knows is the dark side, and so when you give him something else, it's kind of a different affair. But that sucks. That really sucks. You know, getting a 3DS traded for a previous generation handheld. That's a real shame.
And like, I'd be really curious as to like the reasons that these parents gave for, first of all, trading in the 3DS, and secondly getting the tablet, because maybe the 3DS is to do with the 3D, and I would argue, well, get a 2DS.
It could be, yeah.
And with regards to the tablet, we were saying this last time on the show, but parents just have this inbuilt idea that the tablet will be better than the game system because they won't play games on the tablet, when in actuality plenty of kids play loads of games on tablets and they're often worse as a result. But anyway, well, I guess thanks for sharing that story with us. It's always nice to hear those, and nice little follow-up to our segment last time. But I guess that we are pretty much done here with emails. We are, of course, running low. The email bag is getting slim. So, Bally, where should these people send their emails if they want to get them read on the show? Send all your emails to nyppquestions@gmail.com. And yes, we're going to read out more next time, hopefully.
We hope so. Until then, we are going to take a little break, and we'll return for our final segment where we're just going to have a smash attack and talk all about our impressions from the demo, all the new rosters, and all that good stuff. So join us back then. We will be right back. we are back for our third and final segment of the show, and as we stated before, we're going to be discussing some stuff surrounding Smash Brothers. It is impending. It's obviously already released in Japan, and a lot of people know a lot about the game, if not everything about the game at this point. I've been steering away from some of the more super deep stuff just because I want to experience it on my own, but there's a lot of stuff that has come to light. Most of all, the final roster for the game has been fully revealed. So, Bally, we're going to talk about that for a little bit and give our thoughts, I guess, on this final set of characters. So, from the current standpoint, looking at it now, what do you think? You think you're satisfied, happy with what we got?
I am very satisfied. I said before it'd be nice to have one more secret up the sleeve, but 48 characters. How can you complain? Like, that is just so many characters. I am ecstatic. I was actually a little worried for a little while. I should have said this maybe a few weeks ago that Wario might have been cut, but I'm glad to see he's back. Out of the newcomers, I've not played as, because we've obviously had a little go with Mega Man and Animal Crossing and Villager. I'd probably say I'm excited to try out Rosalina, because she's got some interesting move combos.
She seems like the Ice Climbers of this game, and I guess bringing up Ice Climbers, they seem to have been dropped from the roster. And I believe I read something on NeoGAF, an interview with Sakurai and Famitsu, where he kind of said that the reason for that was the 3DS wouldn't have been able to handle it. So if you think about it, the potential is that you have 4-player matches where everyone is playing as Ice Climbers. That's a lot of stuff, and
I know, but isn't Rosalina like the Ice Climbers with Luma? Is that
I wouldn't say it's that drastic, because Luma is a very tiny object,
Okay.
on the screen. I would say that it's much easier to render that stuff. But when you're talking Ice Climbers, you're talking essentially 8 characters on the screen at once. If you wanted to maintain the frame rate, if you wanted to maintain the resolution, and everything to that effect, then I guess he has to drop Ice Climbers. There is still the possibility that they may be, some sort of DLC later on. We'll get to talking about that stuff in a bit, but they seem to have been cut. Are you gutted that they're gone? Do you really care?
I'm easy either way, really. I never used them. They've only ever had one game, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I believe so.
They were kind of in that. It's unfair to say they were in sort of the Jigglypuff area of having, just because they've been in previous Smashes, they have to be in the next one, because Jigglypuff was actually in the very first game, whereas Ice Climbers came in at Melee. I was going to say, just how can anyone be complaining about 48 characters when you look back at, for example, Smash Brothers 64 that we were playing the other day, MBZ,
Right.
and you hadn't unlocked the final 3 characters, but even once you had unlocked the final 3, I think it's got a roster of 12 characters.
Yeah,
Or is it
I
10
believe so.
characters?
I think 12 is the number.
Yeah, 12. So I mean, 48 Nintendo characters. I don't see a lot wrong with that. Now everyone knows I'm a massive Ridley fan, and I mean, he's not going to be on the 3DS version. Certainly not at launch, even if there is DLC. And I guess, is there anything else you want to say before we talk about the potential of DLC? Are you happy with this roster?
Well, yeah, I think that it needed the final gem,
Yeah.
which I agree is something like Ridley or even Mewtwo coming back maybe, but I would be more in favor of Ridley. But I guess if we're looking over some of the other returning faces, we got Game & Watch is back in there, Falco is returning, so is Jigglypuff. I was kind of wary about Jigglypuff just because, it's not really one of those characters that you think should be in Smash anymore, but at this point I feel that Jigglypuff is more of a Smash character than it is a Pokemon.
I mean, I was going to say there's probably people getting into Pokemon at the XY generation who don't even know who Jigglypuff is. And they
they may be wondering, like, why have they chosen this one in particular? It seems a little bit weird. Pokemon's very widely represented. There are 5 characters, individually 5 characters from that series, which I believe is the second most popular after the Mario series. Because there are other well represented ones, but a lot of clones in there. Then Pokemon is pretty distinctive. Each of them are very different and they play very differently. So that's cool and pretty interesting. the big reveals, that weren't actually put out there until the game came out was the Duck Hunt dog, and there's Dark Pit and Dr. Mario. But I think Duck Hunt dog is the big one that everyone's really crazy about. Excited to play as him?
Yeah, it looks cool. I thought it was a really unique idea to have the Duck Hunt dog. A game I know very little about. I've never played it. I don't know anything about that game really. But yeah, it's cool to see it. It was so unexpected, and that's what I do love about this roster. Is there's a few characters on there who you would have never have predicted. Just
I
like
mean, come on,
Wii
Wii Fit
Trainer.
Trainer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. How can you forget her?
Crazy.
So it they are the characters that make Smash Smash. It's not Ridley or any of the Pokemon or even Mario that makes Smash Brothers Smash Brothers. It's the quirky characters, in my opinion,
Yeah.
that make
And I
Smash
was
Brothers
going
Smash
to
Brothers.
talk about how Bowser Jr. seems like a very boring character, but the fact of the matter is they've done really
They
interesting
made
stuff
him
with
exciting, yeah.
Exactly, and if they just slapped on Bowser Jr. onto the roster and just had him waddling about as a normal character, I think people would have been kind of upset at that because he doesn't seem particularly interesting or different. But what they did is they put him in the vehicle and they made some unique moves based around that, and they have the Koopalings. There's alternate costumes for him, so
I mean, they were a big surprise for Mario Kart, and now they've been shoved in at last minute to Smash Brothers. Like, it's
they
crazy.
really seem to be pushing that angle. I'm not sure if there's some kind of plan they have for a Koopalings game sometime soon, but you'd think with all this usage of them
Yeah.
in recent titles that maybe that's could be an expected thing. Obviously, I'm very excited to play as Shulk and see how he plays because I'm a huge Xenoblade fan, and I think that it's a really good sign that he's part of this roster, just because it just cements Xenoblade as a series for Nintendo. And Sakurai was saying when he cut Ice Climbers that they've only had one game and it's not a series that has anything on the horizon. They're not really prioritizing it, and you could kind of ring a different bell about Shulk, because not only do you have the sequel to Xenoblade coming out on Wii U next year, but there's the port to the 3DS, and he's been pushed pretty hard. He had his own trailer, so I'm very excited to have him there, and it bodes well for me, honestly, for the rest of the series, of the future of that series. So yeah.
So when are we gonna get the DLC?
Right. So that's the possibility that we still have. Is my theory that the Wii U version still needs to have some secrets for people to be interested in it, right? And what better way to do that than with some surprise characters? Now, if you take a look at the roster as it currently is, if there were 4 more characters, it would fill up the screen completely. Every block would be perfectly aligned, and we would have a solid roster. That would be 54 if you're counting the Mii's as 3 fighters, total characters. That would be extremely good, and I
55,
think that
wouldn't it?
maybe, but it
51
does
plus
whatever
50,
whatever it is. It's a fuck ton of characters, and it really would solidify that as an excellent, just outstanding roster.
Have you seen Alax's video on this?
I have indeed, yes.
I'm pretty on his side with what could happen. Shall I just quickly explain what he
quick
thinks?
give an
And I
explanation.
guess this is what I think. So he's been following, I think it's what's called the Famitsu leak.
Right.
Now there are basically only 4 characters on that leak that haven't made it into the game, but I think every single other character did.
Yes.
So it's funny that you should say there's space for 4 more characters, because he's suggesting that those 4 characters are the following 4. They are Dixie Kong, the Chorus Kids from Rhythm Heaven, Mewtwo, and Ridley. So his suggestion is that when the Wii U version comes out, they will be on the Wii U version, but if you have the 3DS version and you link it to the Wii U version, you'll be able to get those 4 exclusive characters on the 3DS as well. And the logic behind this is that ultimately it's going to sell Wii U's, because that's what Nintendo really need to do right now, is sell Wii U's. We've said it so many times on this podcast. They're not having as many issues with the 3DS, and having four characters like that, especially someone like Mewtwo and Ridley, who have been demanded so much by the fans, it's crazy. Having those characters on the two games and sell some Wii U's. What do you think of his theory that I'm quite in favor of and I think might happen?
Well, it's pretty much the same one that I talked about last time when I was thinking,
exactly.
There's going to be the DLC going down. What I do think, though, is that eventually they will make those characters available to download on the 3DS version as paid DLC, but I don't think they'll do that right away, because if you do that right away, it reduces the incentive to buy the Wii U version. So what you do initially is you have them exclusive to the connectivity function, so if you have a 3DS and a Wii U in both games, then you're guaranteed to get it. But if you don't, then you're going to have to wait. And at some point, maybe spring of next year or even in the summer, Nintendo will then say, all right, if you didn't buy the Wii U version and you'll still have no incentive to buy it and you don't want it and you still want these characters, we'll put them up on the eShop as paid for downloadable content and you can get them. And I think that may piss some people off, but I think it is kind of necessary if Nintendo actually want to push units of their home system.
And I think, in all honesty, like we were saying before, I think those four characters are easily the gem on the top of this roster.
Oh, no doubt about that.
Ridley would be great.
People may complain about Dixie Kong, but I think that she is very
cool.
unique.
Yeah.
She's unique in the way that she plays, even in the Donkey Kong Country games, and so I definitely think they can do some very interesting stuff with her, regardless of her. Essentially, some people may think of her as a Diddy clone, but she really wouldn't be, in my opinion. The Chorus Men, that's just completely wacky out of left field, and Mewtwo and Ridley are two very solid picks, so I'm certainly all with that theory. I'm very much down with it, and I hope it's true, because they need to have some more stuff to get people excited and hyped about the Wii U version. Otherwise, it does become a little bit of a tricky proposition for.
And do you think they would just announce that on launch day of the Wii U version, so it would be hype train, go out and buy a Wii U kind of thing?
I think it may be unwise to do that. I think they may.
They announced Hyrule Warriors DLC today.
They did indeed, yeah. They announced some of the boss characters of that game are going to be coming
as
available
playable
soon.
characters. Yeah,
there is of course the option that, similar to how Hyrule Warriors did it, the DLC will come maybe a month or two after launch. But I think maybe launch day is when you want to do it, because you're getting around the hype. It's going to be coming out, I think it's confirmed at this point, even though Nintendo haven't confirmed it, but we've had enough leaks that it's coming out on November 21st, at least in Europe.
Same
America
month as that Mario Kart DLC.
Exactly.
It's going to be some month.
I hope so. November's looking pretty good. So
October's not bad either.
It's things. Crunch time is coming. It's the holiday season, so that makes a lot of sense. That would take place. But yeah, I guess enough about the roster speculation, not even speculation. Talking about the roster. Let's get to impressions of the game itself, because very recently Nintendo released a special demo that became available to some select members of Club Nintendo, and the full demo is coming out tomorrow, the time of recording this, which is Friday the 19th of September. But Bali and I, through some very fortunate people, not fortunate people, through some very fortunate circumstances from some generous people on Twitter, both acquired codes for the demo for early access to it, and we've been playing it, and it's been a lot of fun. It has really taken some of the concerns we had and laid them to rest. So, Bali, what are your opinions and thoughts on the 3DS version thus far?
Ever since the 3DS version was announced, I was really concerned that the screen would feel too small, or that it'd be really hard to make the characters feel as slick with something like the circle pad versus an analog stick. The buttons will feel too small, stuff like that. But all those concerns have been washed away by this demo because, in all honesty, it feels great. It feels so smooth. It feels just like everyone said, a bit quicker than Brawl but slower than Melee, and that feels really nice for me. I've already tested out my main, which is Mario, and he's feeling fantastic. I couldn't be happier with how the demo feels.
As testament to Mario, I've been getting into using Mario, so that should tell you how good Mario plays in this game. He's a force to be reckoned with. I tell you what, he's really fun to use.
And that's the great thing about this demo is that it's not spoiling much of the game for me. I mean, I'm playing a bit with Mega Man and Villager and getting to know their movesets, which are awesome movesets. We could maybe get onto in a second, but it has alleviated that main concern I had, like I was saying, and I don't know many of the stages. Well, obviously I know the stages and the characters, but I've not played as them or played on those stages. But just the basic mechanics of fighting on the 3DS with the 3D turned on feels great. I'm really happy.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic, and especially when it comes to the fidelity and the frame rate and everything, it's just dead solid. You know, it runs at 60, even in 3D. It's just a dream, and it performs so well. It looks great and it plays great, and I'm pretty blown away by it. So, despite the fact that there are 5 characters in one stage, I have put, as I said before, about 8 hours into this demo. What about you, Bally? How long have you played it for?
I've played about 4.5 hours. So yeah, I've not got the bug, as it were, as much as you have with this demo, but I'm definitely going to play a lot more of it before October the 3rd. Do you think maybe we should do a little run through of the 5 characters and just give a quick spiel on how they all feel?
Sure. I mean, I guess we'll start with Mario because he's the main man. He's super smooth. He's silky smooth, and I feel like he pushes a lot of buttons in terms of combos and being able to do stuff in the air. He still plays as Bally plays him, if you want to do that, which is just spam fireballs and then go for the forward smash. But I've had a lot of fun with him so far.
Yeah, like I said, he feels almost, well, not identical to Brawl, but yeah, I think Mario has changed the least over the 4 Smash Brothers games, and we actually played all 4 Smash Brothers the other day, NBZ.
We did, yeah.
I played as Mario in all 4 games, and he was feeling silky smooth, in my opinion, in all of them. But yeah, like you said, the most recent version, he's feeling good.
Yeah, next up is Link, who I believe has been really buffed as part of this game. He was not that great in Brawl, as far as I can recall.
Really slow, slow.
Yeah, very plodding. But in this game, he has kind of an interesting change in terms of his forward smash, his running forward smash. He jumps before he performs it, which allows you to jump over some projectiles and gives you a bit more spacing stuff to think about. And his arrows have been extremely powered up to the point at which, if you're in sudden death, you charge up an arrow and it shoots the opponent off the screen, which I believe is not something you can do in previous games. So
definitely not. And yeah, it does, I think, 12 damage or 14 damage. I think it's 12 damage.
I don't know.
The arrow fully charged. But yeah, that forward jumping A move I really like, because if you're stationary and do the A neutral move, sort of his little 3 A move combo, that it'll knock the character back the exact distance that Link jumps when he then does that forward A. So like you can do a combo followed by that combo, I think, and it feels really smooth. And like you said, the arrows are so powerful, and he's just so much quicker than he was in Brawl.
Definitely. He's still kind of slow when it comes to his down A and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
but that's to be expected because that move is very, very powerful.
Yeah, and then he's got the really powerful slow one, and then in Brawl they gave Toon Link the much quicker, less powerful one. I think they'll do that again, which is probably a nice balance.
Definitely. So I guess moving on to Pikachu. He's
Feels
probably
the
the character I've played the least of in this game. You probably the same.
Yeah, same.
He doesn't feel that different to me.
Yeah.
I never really played a lot of Pikachu in the first place, but he's still kind of easy to pick up and go with, and doesn't require a lot of attention. But he's good. He I guess feels more slick as a result of just the whole general feel of this game being that way.
I think he
But
feels the same. I think the way his electricity looks, I think it really looks a lot better. Like it's not quite as. It's really hard to describe how electricity looks. But it just looks a bit different. It's almost like it's a bit more blue than yellow, I guess, or something.
yeah,
It's really difficult to explain, but you'll notice if you play it that it just looks a bit crisper, I think, and works nicely with 3D.
yeah, it's pretty good. So the new characters then we got Villager, who is probably one of the most unique characters in a Smash Brothers game. His moveset is extremely crazy, and yeah, I was pretty hard to get your head around, but really fun, in all honesty.
I really like that they put Villager and Mega Man in this demo. They're just sort of, so here are a couple of newcomers we announced a very long time ago. Hope you like them, sort of thing. Like it's really good they put them in.
Yeah, it kind of brings you back on the hype train to some degree for those characters, because they were the first two newcomers to ever be announced back at E3 2012, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
Or yeah,
maybe it was 13. I can't remember.
Maybe it was 13.
Now.
No, it was 13. It was 2013. But yeah, those guys are great. They are really fantastic, and yeah, Villager in particular has his weird tree that he plants. And Balian, I at first thought it was dumb and it didn't really make much sense, but it can become a very tactical element of the battle.
I think as a ledge guarding move, I think that's its biggest forte.
Yeah, definitely.
I do think his side B, the gyroid, is awesome because you can choose to either just fire it off or actually get on it, depending on how long you hold side B. I think that's a really nice addition. And just his smashes in general are all themed around Animal Crossing, which is really cool. Like his up smash, for example, is just fireworks, which looks cool.
Yeah, and he's got the slingshot as one of his side airs, and some just crazy stuff overall for that guy. His recovery is also insane. Like the amount that you can get back on the stage. He's almost the Pit from Brawl of this game, where he doesn't go anywhere. He just comes back and again. So that's pretty cool. A little bit slow, of course, because that's the nature of his character. But I guess he's kind of made up for.
I think he will be fine in competitive play, to be honest. I think some people will really get into him.
Yeah. So I guess finally Mega Man, who I really enjoyed playing as, and I think is going to be one of my favorite characters to use in this game. He's so different, and the way he jumps is weird because it's keeping in sync with his actual original sprite movements from the original Mega Man games. Even when he dies, it uses the same animation from those NES titles. It's so well themed. I think Mega Man is the best themed character of all of them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Villager's up there with him. I found Mega Man incredibly difficult to pick up and play. I don't know if you'd agree, but
I did spend a lot of time getting to grips with him for sure. So, I did spend most of my original playthrough of the demo just Mega Man, going up against different levels of CPUs, testing out his moves, seeing what worked and what didn't, and what I enjoyed about him, and kind of just focusing on his strengths.
Have you mastered his B neutral one where he throws the gear? Is it
the metal blade? Yeah, the metal blades.
Have you worked out how to do that in different... It can go 8 directions?
I figured out how to do it in different directions. It is kind of hard to master,
isn't it?
You are able to do it in 8 different directions. You can do it diagonally and up, down, left, right. It's it's a pretty cool item, and a very iconic one from the Mega Man series, being from Mega Man 2. So
yeah, I think the addition of Mega Man is awesome. It's nice he's in this demo. From my experience, you really have to get into him. Like, his moves feel so different. For example, his A neutral is just his Mega Buster, and while it does damage, it, unlike say a Mario Punch or a Link Sword Swipe, it doesn't actually knock back the opponent in any way, to my knowledge. Would you disagree, NBZ? Or
I think if you're running at someone and you're doing it, there's a little bit of back push, but not a huge amount.
I'm always used to that sort of 3-move combo of Mario's punches, and then the other fighter will get knocked back a bit. Whereas with Mega Man, he stays right up in your vicinity, and it feels like you have to then use another move to clear them off almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, his smashes are awesome because the two side smashes are ranged, which is really cool to see. I don't think there's many other characters that have much range on their side smashes. I mean, everyone's got a little bit of range, but Mega Man's properly just kind of creates this wave that goes a solid, I don't know, 5 meters in Smash Brothers land.
Yeah.
But
Like half
yeah,
the stage, maybe.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, those are our impressions of the characters. Have a lot of fun playing with all of them, and it gets me so excited to get this final game because the amount of time I put into this demo with just 5 characters makes me think if I'm gonna try
And one game mode.
right, one stage, one game mode. I'm thinking, how much time am I going to put into the final product? Because I want to get to grips with every character. I want to try all their moves, discover what's good and what works and what I like. And with a roster like this, that's going to take a long time. I'll tell you what. Getting all those trophies in classic mode as well. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah,
October 3rd. Not
it's
far
coming.
now.
Yeah, not far at all. I guess when's our next show coming up? I think we'll probably have the game by that point. So
I think next time we're going to be recording is going to be the weekend starting September the 27th.
Or the 5th.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. The 5th.
The 5th of October.
Yeah, I'm doing 1 week, not 2 weeks. Yep.
Yeah.
The 4th
Yep.
and 5th of October. So as long as we can get it on the Friday, we should be able to give a few first impressions.
Totally. And hopefully you guys will be playing along with us because I'm sure that most of our audience are very much down to get Smash. So we're looking forward.
And we've
to that.
done a few YouTube videos as well. You should check that out on NYPPQuestions channel.
Right, I've uploaded some matches, some local matches that we had with the demo, and those are a lot of fun. So you can go view those. In any case, we are going to close out our show though here today, and it's been a good one, but it has to end at some point, and yeah, we're going to do that. So before we go, let's plug ourselves a little bit. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Lordnbz, and I'm also on Miiverse. Lordnbz is the name there. Bally has something else to plug, so why don't you talk about that for a second, Bally?
Okay, so some of you may be aware, I tweeted this a little bit ago, but I am actually running my first ever marathon.
Big feat, to be sure.
Yeah, so this is the Loch Ness Marathon, as in, you know, the Loch Ness Monster and all that jazz. So I'm running it on September the 28th, September 28th.
So next week, basically.
Yeah, next week. So next time of recording, I will have died already.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm raising a bit of money for charity. Now let me explain what charity I'm raising money for. So I'm raising money for the NSPCC, which is an organisation in the UK, which is the National Society of Protection of Cruelty Against Children. So I used to be there's an organisation within this organisation called Childline. So Childline, like it sounds like, is actually a helpline for young people to call on the phones and talk to counsellors about any issues they have, whether that's bullying or just want a chat or anything. It can get an awful lot more serious than that, sort of like suicide and other things like that. So I actually used to be a Childline counsellor. So in return, I'm going to fundraise a bit of money for this organisation, and I'd love it if any of you out there wanted to help me out a bit. So I've set up a Just Giving page. It can be found, I'm sure MBZ you'll put it in the show notes, but
I will
it
indeed.
is www.justgiving.com/a hyphen Ballantyne. That's BALLANTYNE, and yes, that is my name if you want to find out. And yeah, you can see the page there, see how much I've raised. I talk a bit more about Childline, but yeah, if you could do that, that'd be great.
And if you follow Bally on Twitter, you'll be able to find a link there as well. So
Yeah.
If you want to...
Yeah, my Twitter is at Ballyman91, BALLYMAN91, and that is also my name on Miiverse. I've been posting quite a bit of Trine 2, and like I said, I've got a bit more Trine 2 to play, so gonna get on that and post some more. And yeah, I've been tweeting a lot about, I don't know, Smash Brothers. I mean, that's all the hype right now. I guess Hyrule
Totally.
Warriors is coming out and stuff like that, so
Indeed. Excellent. So yeah, good luck with your marathon, Bally.
Thank you very much.
Goes well. Hope it goes well.
I hope so.
And hope you are not too tired afterwards that you won't be able to record.
I'm aiming for under 4 hours. That's the target. So we'll see if I can do that.
Excellent. Again, let's just plug our email address if you want to send emails in. The address is, as always, Bally.
NYPPQuestions@gmail.com.
Yep, so keep those coming in. We've got iTunes reviews we want people to keep writing. There haven't been any in recent times, and we'd like to fix that. So get onto the iTunes, give us a review. That would be mightily kind of you, and we would highly appreciate it. But that is pretty much going to close us out for this week. So thank you very much for listening. We shall return in a fortnight's time when hopefully Smash Brothers shall be upon us and the hype train shall begin. So thank you, and we will speak with you very soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Okay. Eye on the tiger. Eye on the clock of the tiger.
Eye of the Yoshi.
Eye of the Yoshi. It's the egg of the fight.
Waboo! I thought every time you do that, you always do an obligatory Smeagol, and you didn't this time. I'm impressed.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's fine.
You're still holding it back. I'm impressed.
Yeah, well, either that or I can't do it properly anymore after I've vomited my guts out of the place.
That's so random.
It's bad. Okay.